Welcome to the Grayzone Live. I'm here with Max Blumenthal in New York City. I'm Aaron Mate. We're doing this last minute with limited time, so we're going to get right into it. Max, you just came back from a meeting at the UN on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly with President of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian.
That's right. And just getting the word out about our stream on Twitter right now. We got about an hour because we're in studio in New York. And this was our chance to get together in person and be able to talk about some of the recent work we've been doing at the Grayzone. And, it's pretty much up to the studio. Otherwise, we'd stay for much longer. So, we'll follow up on this. And we were going to have more studio time, but I was invited to a small, private, but basically on the record meeting with Masoud Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, and Dr. Abbas Araghchi, who is the foreign minister. And they were late because they were meeting with Emmanuel Macron of France about the snapback sanctions that Europe is about to hypocritically impose on Iran, even though the US broke the Iran deal in 2018. And so there's no way that Iran can be accused of not abiding by an agreement that was invalidated. It's pure hypocrisy. And that was part of Pezeshkian's message. He focused heavily on the Gaza genocide, the assassinations by Israel, including in Qatar. Inside Iran, he mentioned the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh and said, how can you accuse us of being the chaos agents? The chaos is emanating from Israel. How can you accuse us of being terrorists when we're the victims of terrorism? He focused very heavily on the assassination program. He mentioned a book he read. I asked him directly about a speech given last Tuesday by Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who said that negotiations with the U.S. are pure folly and will only end up in more war, and it would be a declaration of surrender to re-enter negotiations with the U.S. And does that reflect his position, the position of the presidency? And I asked if he believed that Donald Trump had actually set a ruse in the last round of negotiations to lull Iran into a sense of false security so that they could be more easily targeted by the Israelis. And he didn't answer my question directly. He was clearly it sounded like he was leaving the door open for diplomacy, but he emphasized that they would only enter negotiations on certain terms and that they obviously don't trust the U.S. He brought up a book he read by someone named Mitchell Clark called Endless Wars. And the thesis of the book is that the U.S. will never cease its regime change wars because of its insatiable lust for resources. And then he said that no doubt the U.S. will attack Iran again, and Israel will attack Iran again, that they will defend themselves more vigorously than before. And he pointed to all of the social cohesion that took place when Israel attacked Iran without provocation in June, that sectors of Iranian society that didn't previously, that had harsh criticisms, if not total opposition to the Islamic Republic, came together in support of the military. And he pointed to that as a real basis of Iran's strength going into the next inevitable war. He, on my question later, went off on Steve Witkoff, the U.S. negotiator, and basically called him a fraud and said that every time that he would meet with us, they wished they had recorded it. He would tell them one thing positive, and they would come out feeling positive, and then he'd go back to Washington and say another, which is something we've covered here a lot at the Grayzone. So they don't obviously trust the Americans. And he also mentioned the possibility that Israel would target him for assassination. And he said that there are 5 people waiting to take his place, and that Iran is planned for every possible scenario. So Iran's on a war footing, and basically the figures who were invited there were the anti-war community in the U.S., including like guests we've had here. And the meeting was militarized. There were FBI agents in and all around the meeting. Then there was a bomb squad, NYPD, airport security to get into the hotel. The entire Midtown New York is heavily militarized right now for UNGA. Like I've never seen it before. I talked to someone who was at a meeting with Amnesty International who said there were snipers on the roof outside their meeting. I think, it's to provide security. It's not like they're trying to menace anybody, but
it's the first time the U.S. is protecting someone from the Israelis.
Exactly. I mean, the Secret Service just found thousands of SIM cards that were spying devices.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? Netanyahu just told Republican lawmakers on a Hasbara trip to Israel that Israel is in your phone. And I guess he meant like Israeli technology is so great, but the subtext is like the golden pager he handed Trump. They're spying on us. They're very nervous about this meeting in particular. And Trump told a lie every second in his speech. He also called for peace in Gaza, but it's an empty gesture. And
Trump's just announced another, $5 or $6 billion in weapons for
$6
Israel.
billion.
Yeah, and Wickoff. I mean, Wickoff showed his true face at that fundraiser for, was it United Herzliya?
United Hatzalah.
Yeah, Hatzalah, when he gushed that a former head of Mossad had clapped for him. He was like, my mother would be so proud of me. I mean, that's Steve Wickoff, and that's what he's using his fake diplomacy to do. So Iran, Pezeshkian talked about Iran being prepared. How prepared do you think they are for another Israeli attack? And do you think that another Israeli attack on Iran is inevitable at this point?
There's a window that's probably between now and December that might have been pushed back because of the attack on Qatar. And that really complicated Israel's relations with all of the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, because they wonder, could they be next? That Israel's just is trying to establish itself as a regional hegemon and will attack anyone and seeks an imposed peace. So that really, and we'll see how far Qatar goes with its efforts to isolate Israel. They're trying to push them out of the European Football Association, which would be a huge blow, I think. But there's also the flotilla right now. The Samud flotilla is in the Mediterranean, and they're under attack by Israeli drones. They're dumping chemical weapons on them. They're basically doing everything short of killing them. They've defined them as kind of a terrorist entity.
Yeah.
And allegedly, the Italian government of Giorgia Meloni is sending a military ship to escort them because there are many Italian citizens in the flotilla. So that could also be another complicating factor. I don't know when I could predict an attack, but it really seems like the window is closing, and Israel has several considerations, but one of the main factors is midterm elections coming up, and they feel like they have Trump by the balls right now, and they don't want to waste the opportunity when it's clear now from transcripts of the Israelis, including Chief of Staff of the Israeli military, Eyal Zamir, that the Israelis knew they basically had a guarantee that if they attacked Iran unprovoked, that the U.S. would basically rescue them from the war they started.
Yeah. This came out from Israel recently. There was leaked transcripts of Israeli war cabinet meetings where basically Netanyahu, first of all, admitted that the whole nuclear claim that Iran was weeks or months away was a complete lie. He said maybe in years they might have something. So he undermined that lie that he told. And he said, yes, we have a unique window of opportunity to draw the U.S. in. And also he talked about the fact that Iran was rebuilding its air defenses from a previous Israeli attack. So that was the moment that he seized. Nothing to do with his false claim of a nuclear weapons program.
Yeah. Pezeshkian brought up a moment during the negotiations with the Biden administration. I guess this was under Raisi, when in the middle of negotiations, Israel attacked the Natanz facility, like a terrorist attack, and blew up like 4,000 centrifuges. And he said, we escalated, we moved up our enrichment as retaliation, but we understood what the Israelis wanted to do is break off negotiations between us and the Americans. And so we needed to keep the door open for that. But at this point, I don't think the door is open. I think what Khamenei said is valid and true, and what he said back in May was also true, that any negotiations they enter into directly with the U.S. will be used by the Israelis to set a deadline for an attack, and that's the kind of pressure they're under. So I think they're just preparing for an inevitable military confrontation. I met with Pezeshkian last year, and I was among a small group of kind of like anti-war journalists. Most of the people in the meeting were corporate media zombies, and Lester Holt, Andrea Mitchell, Robin Wright from the New Yorker. And I mean, I don't want to knock all of them, but it was obvious that the Iranians were trying to send a message to the administration through these mainstream journalists. They're no longer trying to do that. They're trying to send a message to the American people, and including to parts of the Trump base. I mean, there were a number of conservatives in this meeting too, who are, anti-war, from think tanks and publications. And, I think a big missed opportunity for Iran would have been to have Pezeshkian in his UNGA speech mention that one of the Americans who lobbied most strongly and forcefully against the U.S. attack on Iran was Charlie Kirk. That would have been a way to kind of break through the information, the information blackout, because we only hear from like Netanyahu, Trump, and a few other leaders.
Well, that's a good seg into our next topic, unless you want to say anything more about your meeting today.
Well, I mean, while this meeting was taking place last night, there was a fireside chat with the former founder of the Al-Qaeda branch of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa, aka Mohammed al-Jolani, who was the co-founder of ISIS. This is just a couple weeks after the 9/11 anniversary, and he was warmly welcomed at the Middle East Institute. Charles Lister was his host, longtime, basically Al-Qaeda lobbyist in Washington. And it really just shows the priorities of this government. They don't care that Al-Qaeda is in New York. They are much more hostile to someone like Pezeshkian, who wants negotiations because he wants negotiations on shared terms, whereas Sharaa is willing to give up the whole store and basically lay down for Israel. That's all that counts.
Yeah, I mean, Sharaa, aka Mohammed al-Jolani, has said multiple times that us and Israel share the same enemies, which is Hezbollah and Iran, which was the whole point of the Syria dirty war, to destroy a state that was a part of the axis of resistance with Iran and Hezbollah, and also to draw them in, to bleed them so that Israel could be stronger, exactly as Israel is taking advantage of now openly. Netanyahu says what a wonderful thing it is that there is regime change and there's a historic moment to go even further. But yeah, David Petraeus, former director of the CIA, sitting down with Sharaa, aka al-Jolani, and Petraeus said to him, "Your success is our success." And Petraeus also said that everything you've done since taking power has validated my argument. And what was that? The argument from Petraeus was that we should support the Al-Qaeda dominated insurgency in Syria. And my question was, like, as Jolani's forces, Sharaa's forces, are killing hundreds, maybe thousands of people who belong to minority groups, namely so far the Alawites and the Druze. There have been at least 2 notorious massacres. In March, Alawites over 1,000 killed, and that's being conservative in my estimate. And then in July, hundreds of Druze killed by Jolani's forces. Does Petraeus feel validated by that? Because he's doing exactly what his forces did throughout the war, is committing sectarian mass murder.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. This is supposed to be the coin master, the counterinsurgency master, and his counterinsurgency plan, which he introduced in 2015, was arm what he called moderate Al-Qaeda against ISIS. But it was actually arming Al-Qaeda against Damascus. And then what do they do after their insurgency succeeds? They go on a rampage against Syria's minorities. This is like, should be discrediting to Petraeus, who's discredited himself again and again and again, is one of the more corrupt figures to come out of a deeply corrupted military leadership. And, al-Sharaa has come home to his boss. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are saying, why wasn't there more of a process to bring al-Sharaa out, like we had with other groups that were involved in insurgencies, including like the ANC in South Africa? The process began in 2012. Yeah. It's not a new thing.
Yeah. 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 Well, should we talk about Charlie Kirk? You've been on a roll with all of your reporting on the pressure he faced in the last stages of his life from his pro-Israel donors, the second thoughts he was having about his prior support for Israel, and some really key details, including that he refused a funding offer directly from Netanyahu. That billionaire Bill Ackman convened an intervention to try to lobby him. And your most recent article was that a top donor to his group, Turning Point USA, stopped support for Kirk right before he died.
Yeah, so let's just go back to the beginning, considering where we are right now on this story. So we've demonstrated all of those. We've reported all of that out. And now it's up to Charlie Kirk's kind of comms guy, Andrew Colvett, to spin all those stories that have been certified as fact. But it all started after Charlie Kirk's killing, with Netanyahu coming out and trying to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy and blame Islam and blame the radical left before even a suspect was arrested. And I introduced this story showing that actually Charlie Kirk loathed Netanyahu, citing a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, that actually Charlie Kirk was going insane from the amount of lobbying and pressure and manipulation that he was experiencing from Netanyahu's forces in the United States. And it was all borne out by Charlie Kirk's public statements. For example, he made one very important comment with Megyn Kelly on, I believe, August 6th of this year. And then I learned that those comments on August 6th came after this Hamptons struggle session influencer summit, which has so many layers to it. But what did we know about that influencer summit before I reported that? All we knew was what Bill Ackman said, which is, I was lucky enough to share a meal with Charlie Kirk. Just how deceptive can you be? It was just a meal. It turned out that Charlie Kirk actually lost it and accused one of his interlocutors, a Zionist fanatic named Natasha Hausdorff, who's a lawyer in the UK, whose job is basically to get as many protesters jailed as possible for Israel, was apparently screaming at Charlie Kirk, according to one source who was there. And he said that would be this is like moral blackmail. So I reported all that. Bill Ackman threw a tantrum. He wrote one of his textbook, 7,000 or 5,000 word Twitter posts, basically spinning the whole thing and saying, he was very close to Charlie Kirk and it wasn't an intervention, blah, blah, blah. And then we learned that Charlie Kirk, and then Candace Owens goes live about that meeting and becomes the target. Like, the target isn't really on me, it's on her, because she has cachet in that world. I don't come from their world. I'm just gathering sources there. She becomes the target of like the entire Netanyahu apparatus in the US. When I say Netanyahu apparatus, I mean like it is representing Israel, but it's a faction within the Israeli power structure that has embedded itself into the Republican Trump wing of the Republican Party. And we now know who they are through my follow-up reporting to the second piece. So the third piece I did, it's two parts. First, Charlie Kirk lost his biggest, probably his biggest donor, one of his biggest donors. And there were rumors about it. I was hearing people say in his camp that he had lost a big donor. And I got a tip on who it was from a TPUSA insider. Then I heard from a separate source who attended a gala dinner in Los Angeles that this donor, whose name is Robert Shillman, very appropriate name.
They've always got a name.
It's like,
that matches the persona. Yeah.
Why don't you call him like, Seymour Kleptowitz or Land Theftowitz?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too appropriate. Bill Ackman's almost kind of like very,
Yeah, it's
alludes to-
benign in comparison.
It's very and it's kind of evocative in a way. But anyway, so I find out that Robert Shillman at this banquet had actually complained about Charlie Kirk and said, this was on September 6th, 4 days before he was shot, that he was defunding him. He was not going to fund him anymore, and he was going to be contributing elsewhere. So I called up not only Robert Shillman, who hung up on me when I asked him about his comments, but the president of that organization, the American Freedom Alliance, who got really upset with me and hung up. And then I called the MC of the dinner, who said that, I can neither confirm nor deny, and you could tell he was really nervous as well. So I went with the story. And then since then, Laura Loomer has been kind of like trying to find some avenue to attack me, because she is she's a Shillman fellow. She's a shill woman. And Shillman was one of her longtime backers. And she's now claiming, which is really interesting, Laura Loomer, I mean, this is someone who's actually like making personnel decisions inside the Trump administration, and is very personally close with Trump. Maybe, I don't know, in some ways closer than Melania is. And she made an effort to kind of distance herself from Shillman, which is interesting because if you look at Laura Loomer's Twitter activity after the TPUSA summit in Tampa, Florida last summer in July, when Tucker Carlson got up on stage and mocked Bill Ackman as a scam artist and said, Americans who go as foreign fighters for Israel should have their citizenship pulled, and Epstein was a Mossad agent. Everyone was saying that on stage. Loomer just went off on Charlie Kirk and said he talks out of both sides of his mouth. He can't be trusted. Basically kind of softening him up for what was going to be like a bigger Zionist campaign against him. And what my theory is that she may have actually gone to Shillman and said, defund this guy, like destroy him. Like he was under a ferocious attack. And at the same time, this is the second part of my third story, fourth song off my third album. The second part is about how I learned more about these managers, these sort of Zionist managers that were seeking to control Charlie Kirk's message as he embarked on the first leg of his tour at Utah Valley University, speaking to him every day. They were trying to set up a WhatsApp group with him so they could speak to him every minute. They were having Zoom calls. Bill Ackman was on the Zoom call. In this Zoom group, it was like 10 people. Joshua Hammer from Newsweek, who's one of Netanyahu's top voices inside the US, who on October 8th, 2023, the day after October 7th, called for Israel to flatten Gaza and turn Gaza into a football stadium and to target its civilian population and expel them. He's a Newsweek editor at large, but he's an Israeli plant. And then Sean McGuire, someone to really keep an eye on, who's a VC, he's a venture capitalist at Sequoia Capital, who said that Zohran Mamdani comes from a culture of lying. And he just made several racist comments about him. These guys are all targeting Mamdani too, and they were trying to work through Charlie Kirk. They're obsessed with Mamdani. And part of the reason that the Influencer Summit was convened by Ackman in the Hamptons was to basically buy clicks by influencers who were disproportionately young, seemingly attractive women and minority males against Mamdani, to get them to do posts against Mamdani. And they're just straight up grooming them. Yeah. Then, many of them went on a free Israeli government-sponsored propaganda trip soon after. But back to the Zoom calls, there was one figure in particular named Pesach Wolicki from a group called Israel 365 Action, which has a contract with the Israeli Foreign Ministry to send mostly conservative Christian influencers to Israel on propaganda tours. I got one of the invites that he sent to an influencer and published it in this piece. He said that he was on the phone daily with Charlie Kirk, giving him talking points for his upcoming tour, and that Charlie Kirk was pushing back and that he seemed frustrated and that he had kind of like He was under the influence of people that Wolicki didn't like. So it was very clear Charlie Kirk was undergoing a transformation. And so if we start from the beginning, Netanyahu is trying to claim Charlie Kirk. He thought it was going to go very well and that none of this would come out. It all comes out. It's now at the point where like JD Vance on Charlie Kirk's show after Kirk was killed confirmed something I reported, which is that Charlie Kirk personally stormed into the White House and demanded that they not attack Iran after towards the end of the 12-day war, that they not basically rescue Israel. Vance confirmed that. So Netanyahu had a real problem. And then something else was happening at the same time. And I have no control over this. Like I said in my first piece, there is no evidence that the Israeli government played a role in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And I called it an unsubstantiated theory. All right. So just to be clear about that, other people drew the conclusion that Israel did kill him, and they were getting millions of impressions on social media.
And given what Israel gets away with every single day, you can understand why people would draw that conclusion. It's understandable in this context where Israel has impunity to do whatever it wants, and is therefore and is so evil in its actions. It's a natural suspect for anything, even if there's no evidence to support it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they hold the record for global assassinations.
Yeah.
That's their MO. And they take credit for assassinating journalists every week in the Gaza Strip. They boast about it. But this provoked Netanyahu not once, but twice, the second time on his personal prime minister social media channel, to declare, to categorically deny that he assassinated Charlie Kirk. I mean, when have you ever seen a foreign leader come out on his own volition and volunteer that he didn't assassinate a U.S. political leader?
Yeah.
It's never happened before.
Yeah.
And so many people actually took that as a confession of guilt. I saw it as, for once, Netanyahu may not have assassinated someone, and he just wanted everyone to know that for once he wasn't guilty. But I don't, I'm struggling increasingly to accept the official story as the official story grows murkier and murkier about this assassination. And I'm just, I would like to see a better investigation and more evidence. And the internet is definitely not buying it. So these theories are going to abound and run wild. And, for all I care, I really don't care if people blame Netanyahu or not. I just don't have any evidence of that. Ben Shapiro also came out and denied that Israel did it.
Yeah.
How would he know anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a tool. But this is this was deeply, deeply damaging to Netanyahu's PR and his ability to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy. And why did it matter so much? Because Charlie Kirk stood atop the last base of grassroots support that Israel commanded inside the United States. And it's falling apart. There's a conservative revolt against Israel and Israeli influence inside the US. And they need that base because they need those young white Christian men to go to war for the self-proclaimed Jewish state.
Yes. Yes. And that to me is the significance of your story. That to me is what this is all about. It shows that just the very thin grasp they have over the American right and how they're scared of losing it. And they need that to be able to continue being the Jewish supremacist state that they are. And the intimidation tactics they go to against people, the combination of bribery, funding, and then blackmail by taking it away. I mean, that's how they operate. And, you've been covering Israel for a long time. So how does this fit into Israel's overall longstanding efforts to basically preserve U.S. support, especially from the political bases that are most important to them, like evangelicals and Congress?
Well, Israel's support is completely top down in the U.S. The bottom has dropped out of it. So these 3 articles should be read as a kind of inside story of how Israel lost the right-wing grassroots. They're gone. They're completely gone. And at the same time, there's a recognition, which is correct, that the media still plays a role in shaping opinion. So Israel's buying, they're literally buying every media entity they can. And the way this is being interpreted in mainstream media, which is sort of liberal, is that it's a pro-Trump media takeover. They're like pro-Trump forces are taking it over, and Oracle is backing it. What is Oracle? Oracle's Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison on Ellison's Island, hosted in his private island in Hawaii, Benjamin Netanyahu. Larry Ellison's biggest issue is Israel. And Oracle has, it grew out of the CIA. It's basically a data contractor for the CIA, the intelligence world, and it's building data centers across the US to drive the AI so-called revolution. But Larry Ellison's interests lie with Israel. So do his sons. So does it's the same with his son, David Ellison, who Jack Paulson has exposed this at his Substack through the Handala leaks of Benny Gantz's personal email account, that David Ellison for years has been involved in coordinating with the Israeli government to attack BDS and the Palestine Solidarity Movement in the US. So David Ellison is taking over CBS with his dad's money and installing Barry Weiss, who just had a softball interview with the former director of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen. Didn't ask about Epstein until the lightning round at the end. It was just a complete softball, humanizing interview of this mafia don. And then there's TikTok. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, Oracle is buying TikTok along with Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen, venture capitalist. He's blocked me.
His father is David Horowitz.
So
right?
Robert Horowitz's father's David Horowitz,
Yeah.
who is the mentor of Charlie Kirk, by the way, but who was like one of the most anti-Palestinian fanatics our country has ever known, who was funded, his whole political empire was funded by Robert Shillman, who I mentioned before.
There we go.
Andreessen Horowitz is just a ultra-Zionist Likud venture capital consortium that is partnering with Larry Ellison to take over TikTok. So basically, Trump is the host body for Israel in all of this, and liberals only see, the clouds, and they're not seeing the sky behind it. And Israel controls Trump, and so these will be ostensibly pro-Trump networks, but they will advance Israel's agenda.
Yeah, the White House press secretary Leavitt, she said this week, ahead of the deal being signed, that Trump has finalized for the Ellisons to get TikTok along with his partners you mentioned, that the new TikTok algorithm will be secured and retrained. So what does that mean? They're going to suppress all the images that got them to force the sale of TikTok in the first place, which is of dying murdered Palestinians in Gaza. Mitt Romney and Antony Blinken openly admitted that when they did a little fireside chat publicly, where they talked about how TikTok was a major problem because it was letting people see images of the Gaza Holocaust, and Mitt Romney and Blinken agreed that that was a major threat. And it's openly admitted that initially there was some hesitancy on Capitol Hill to go after TikTok, but after October 7th, that changed because TikTok was letting young people see and share the truth about the Gaza genocide. And so that's what leads us now to yet another major platform being handed over to Zionist billionaires. And by the way, the Ellisons, Larry Ellison, his son, they're also making a bid to buy CNN.
Yeah.
So we could have a situation where the Ellisons control CBS News, CNN, and also TikTok.
And they've bought all conservative media. Newsmax is now funded by the Israeli Foreign Ministry, and they're sending influencers over to Israel. One American News, I was told by the former producer there that Miriam Adelson has funded them.
Really? Sometimes that channel has done some anti-war stuff.
Well, I'm supposed to go on Matt Gaetz's show tomorrow to talk about all this, and he's been pushing back really hard against, he's part of the conservative revolt against Israeli control.
He'll be gone soon if he keeps it up.
Well, he's the only personality there anyone pays attention to, but I've been hearing from right-wing media figures and journalists since I came out with these pieces, and like what they tell me is like every single outlet is on lockdown.
Yeah.
by Israel. I mean, Gateway Pundit, for example, was basically founded in Jerusalem after a meeting with Netanyahu, Jim Hoft, Andrew Breitbart, and all of these other kind of like neocon figures. And yeah, there's no room for debate there. Same with Breitbart. I mean, they're all just like people would say there was a lady in the office that I hadn't seen before, and all she seemed to care about was Israel. Like I just keep hearing these stories. I mean, you look at Tim Pool getting a private meeting with Netanyahu where he's not allowed to even discuss what took place. It was Chatham House rules.
Whereas he once allowed dissenters to come on. Like I was on a show. I think you were on a show too.
I was on on October 10th, 2023, and he let me say my piece.
I was on the day that Chris Coons got me kicked off the train. I was on my way to go do Tim Pool's show. So but since then he's met with Netanyahu, and he's someone who's fallen in line. I
kind of clammed up.
Yeah.
And whenever he gets asked about it, he looks like a deer in the headlights. So
yeah,
this is part of the program, is basically buying influence within the new media, which is supplanting the discredited old media that they're buying anyway, just so they can control those assets. And that's what the Bill Ackman Hamptons Influencer Summit was about. It's like just buying impressions, buying clicks for Israel through these completely avaricious, vapid figures like Xavier Durousseau. This guy's basically just like a child actor. He just wants to like be an actor. And so wealthy Zionists are paying him and they're writing his script. And if you go to his Instagram account, like the categories are all like Zionism, Israel. He is a black man from Louisiana. It just looks weird. And then they got Emily Wilson, who is Emily Saves America. Emily's going to save America by advancing Israeli interests in Washington. She used to actually criticize Israel, and then they sent her on a propaganda trip. She was at the Influencer Summit. So it's like Israel's recognized the threat it faces, and they're just buying. And anyone who wants to be bought will get bought. There's a lot of money out there. And I want to address one of the lies that's being introduced, and I don't even exactly know where it came from, which is that Andrew Colvett, who is Charlie Kirk's kind of like spokesman, he's like the comms director for TPUSA, and they said he's his best friend. I tried to like take down some of the misinformation about Charlie Kirk, specifically relating to my reporting and things that Candace Owens has said as well. And he said, Charlie Kirk and TPUSA never would have accepted $150 million from Netanyahu because we don't take foreign money. But no one ever said that.
Never said that.
I never reported that.
Yeah.
What I said was that Netanyahu was seeking to recruit his coterie of millionaires and billionaires inside the US to fund TPUSA to the hilt in order to basically incentivize Charlie Kirk falling back into line on this issue. And I never said anything about $150 million. I don't even know where that came from. I saw like America First Post said something about that, but so basically they're taking down, it's a straw man tactic. Yeah. They're taking down an allegation that was never made.
Well, so what does that mean? If they're going out of the way to deny things you've never said, I take that as confirmation of everything you actually did say.
Yeah.
You know, because
right.
they're not denying that.
Well, he also avoided denying that Netanyahu had made any offer at all. Yeah. We know Netanyahu offered him a trip to Israel, and he, according to several sources, refused. Netanyahu said that himself.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. So Andrew Colvett also addressed the notion that Charlie Kirk was entertaining a conversion to Catholicism, which would have been significant vis-a-vis Israel because the Catholics, and especially like the trad Cath world, are less likely to be Christian Zionists.
Sure.
And they don't have this concept of Israel as like covenant land. They're not as interested in the book of Revelations and the rapture and so on.
Yeah.
And first, Charlie Kirk's pastor, who I think was on Charlie Kirk's payroll along with his son, didn't deny that. And then Andrew Colvett came out and said the reason that Charlie Kirk was going to Catholic Mass with his wife was because they just liked the visual aspect of the churches. The Catholic churches are really decorated so well. And so they were just kind of like enjoying the vibe of the church. Like, yeah, that really checks out, especially from the guy who said that the reason there's no exit wound and no bullet has been produced is because Charlie Kirk had, in his words, a steel spine that stopped the bullet and saved everyone. I mean, we're talking about a 30-06 sniper rifle that can like blast through a tree trunk from 150 meters away. So a lot of the bad Hasbara is just so transparent right now that it just raises further questions and corroborates all my reporting. And Kovet did corroborate that Charlie Kirk complained about blackmail, that he felt like he was being blackmailed.
For people complaining about our production levels here, we did this very last minute, and at least we're in person together, which we don't very often do. But we will be doing more of these because it's much better. And thanks everyone for tuning in live with us on such short notice. Let me talk for a second about Trump and Ukraine. It's being said that Trump is making a huge U-turn right now in Ukraine. He is talking about now. He's this week he came out and said that he thinks Ukraine can take back all of its territory and go back to the original pre-war borders. That's what which is a total reversal of everything he said when he told Zelensky, for example, you don't have the cards. But then he said Ukraine can take back all of its territory with European support, so not with ours. But he said, we're happy to keep selling the weapons. So what he's basically doing is he's trying to encourage Ukrainians to keep fighting so he can sell them U.S. weapons without paying for it himself.
Yeah.
So what's being taken as a big U-turn is really just him seeing a market opportunity to make more money for U.S. weapons makers. But it just shows that his rhetoric on this war is totally all over the place because, in their White House meltdown, he told Zelensky, you don't have the cards. And now he's saying, yeah, no, go ahead. Go. I think you can take back all your territory. And he called Russia. He said Russia might be a paper tiger. So he's like,
doesn't sound like Trump's language, does it?
Well, it's,
so this is the Truth Social post, right?
The Truth Social, but also in his meeting with Zelensky and with Macron, he said similar things.
Okay. Well, I've been hearing rumors that Sebastian Gorka has access to Trump's Truth Social account and that he was responsible for that language.
Well, Trump personally too said also Russia might be a paper tiger. I just think Trump is personally seeing an opportunity here to make more money for U.S. weapons makers, and he's encouraging Ukraine to keep fighting so he can make more money off of it. But the really ominous thing to me is this. Putin this week offered a 1-year extension of New START, which is the last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia. It caps the number of nuclear warheads at around 1,500 each. And if it expires, which it's supposed to in February, that means there will be no more arms control limiting the arsenals of the U.S. and Russia, the top nuclear powers. So Putin this week said, we need to avoid a new arms race. Let's do a 1-year extension, which under New START is the most they can do because it's incentivized to have a brand new treaty. So Trump hasn't responded yet. And Trump almost killed the last time, Trump almost killed New START in his first term. In his last day in office, he could have renegotiated and extended it, but he didn't. It was Biden who saved it at the very last minute. So what my concern is, for all the talk Trump has put out there about diplomacy with Russia, that he's going to let New START expire. And come next year, we're not going to have any new nuclear arms control between the world's top 2 nuclear powers. And no one's really talking about this. To me, this is like a far bigger danger than even the dynamics of the Ukraine battlefield. Because we're talking about an ongoing war in which the U.S. and Russia are on opposing sides. And Trump is flirting with not having any more, starting next year, a pact limiting nuclear weapons of the U.S. and Russia.
And you see Ukrainian influencers being interviewed, trying to recruit foreign fighters. They're running out, acknowledging they're running out of men. We don't have the production capacity to throw up these clips that I would like to have done, sort of an impromptu stream. But this is the message coming out of Kiev. There's money coming, the money's flowing back in, the weapons are flowing back in. There aren't men. And as long as Trump keeps this up, I think the Russian military could be on the road to Odessa by the end of next year. I mean, there's no other direction that I can see this going unless they freeze the conflict. Now, the reason that there are figures in the Trump administration like Elbridge Colby and the Vance faction that wanted to freeze the conflict around Zaporozhye and Kherson is so that they could rearm the United States to prepare for conflict with China. This is delaying the conflict that they want with China, which is really the big prize. And that faction of the Trump administration is also frustrated by Israel, which compelled the US by controlling Trump to expend 1/3 of its THAAD missile, air defense missile stockpiles, which means no missiles for Taiwan, no weapons for the Pacific Rim vassals of US empire that are going to be the front line in the coming war with China. So they're just stuck there, and Trump keeps oscillating between the Vance faction and then back to the Lindsey Graham faction. And it really doesn't it feel like Lindsey Graham's really sitting in the catbird seat right now? I mean, he's all over the place.
100%. He's totally, he got Trump to put on new tariffs on India, which was strategically disastrous, I think, for the US, because they've been trying to get India even more in their orbit as opposed to being close with China. But he got Trump to do that because India still trades with Russia. Doesn't even support Russia militarily, but just trading with Russia can get you sanctioned by the US because Russia is a designated bad guy. So yeah, Lindsey Graham is totally ascendant right now. And he's very happy. I mean, he was the guy who bragged about, as long as we keep this going, Ukraine will fight to the last person. And that's what he's seeing through.
Yeah. As the Trump administration scores some major military victories against Venezuelan fishing boats.
Well, should we talk about that? They've now bombed, I think, by their count, 3 boats off of Venezuela.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in New York, and cocaine is nowhere to be found in the restaurant industry. It's just gone. Like, all the restaurants have shut. The bars are no longer functioning. Everyone's looking for Adderall because they stopped it. Like, they're defending us from this poison flooding into our communities.
The fiends are everywhere, just scrambling, trying to find the coke that Trump has cut off. Yes.
The gentrifier dope fiends are like lining up around the block at clinics. I mean, it's a joke. And meanwhile, Daniel Noboa, who is the top exporter, one of the top exporters of cocaine to the United States, who's the president of Ecuador, is facing massive street protests right now. He's cutting subsidies for diesel, which is sort of that's what helped spark the Caracazo that led to Hugo Chavez taking power in Venezuela, or first launching his revolutionary coup attempt in 1992. And people are out in the streets, they're angry. Noboa is following a straight up IMF austerity program while he is working to set up what looks like a US military base, something that Correa prevented from happening. That's why Marco Rubio is just down there. So the real source of cocaine keeps showing up in banana shipments from Noboa's family company, Bonita Fruit Company. It keeps showing up packed in their crates. And who is the head of shipping for Bonita? It was Daniel Noboa himself, who was born in Miami, by the way, the son of Miami. His family are just like, South Florida oligarchs. So the hypocrisy is out of control. We have several interviews or several short documentaries about Ecuador and Noboa at the Grayzone that I think put this in perfect context. But another point I made, I guess I tweeted out a 60 Minutes episode or segment back when 60 Minutes was had Mike Wallace, and they sometimes investigated the CIA instead of letting the CIA write their scripts.
And they didn't have a Zionist ombudsman as they do now. Someone was recently appointed as the ombudsman at CBS News, who was like a pro-Israel activist.
Yeah, David Weissman from the Hudson Institute in Washington. I mean, that they're setting the stage for Barry Weiss to come in. His job is to just crush the news division on behalf of Israel. He's a straight up Israel lobbyist. So anyway, Mike Wallace exposed how the CIA was funding through foundations, like the Ford Foundation was funding the left, the non-communist left. He has a history of doing real investigative journalism. So he did a piece on how the CIA had a plan to let the dope walk in the pre-Chavez era of Venezuela. And their key assets, the DEA's key asset inside Venezuela, this is a DEA plan and CIA. Their key asset was a general, I think his name was Guillen. I don't have it in front of me. And he was basically told to oversee these cocaine shipments inside the US. So supposedly then the DEA could track how the cocaine gets into the cities, who's dealing it, and so on. And something like 20 tons of cocaine, which is actually a lot of cocaine, was shipped into the US in a very short time. I saw it growing up in DC. I could just see it. Like, it was like overnight, there was a crack epidemic in DC, and there wasn't before. It just happened. Like 1988, it was just like boop. Next thing you know, you had people like literally lining up around the block on New York Ave to buy crack from Rayful Edmonds, who was like the big kingpin. He was making tens of millions of dollars a month, but he was like the middleman for these cartels, which were being run by the CIA. So back to the Venezuelan generals, they wore this symbol for their officer corps that was a sun, and they just were informally known as the Cartel of the Suns. Okay, this whole operation ended. The Cartel of the Suns no longer existed, and it was resurrected by Attorney General William Barr under Donald Trump to issue a $25 million bounty for Nicolas Maduro, accusing him of being in charge of the Cartel of the Suns, a fake cartel that the CIA and DEA helped create at the expense of the American public.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy is this story? So it's all come full circle, and they're using it again as the basis for a scenario. I mean, there's 4 scenarios, like insurgency, and they're not going to be able to get that going. Like a color revolution, they tried that with Guaido, didn't happen. Like an internal coup in the military, not going to happen. Invasion, possible. Airstrikes, I would say likely. Like they might actually move from taking out these boats to actually attacking inside Venezuela, saying we're attacking the cartels. And they've been threatening to do that to Mexico too.
Yeah. Yeah. And this week, Maduro or his presidency released a letter that he wrote directly to Trump after Trump's first attack on that speedboat, offering to engage in direct talks with Trump's envoy, Richard Grenell. And by all indications, Trump has turned that down. He just said his like usual stock statement, we'll see what happens, which when he said that before about Iran, for example, that led to bombing. So it looks like inside the White House, again, you have a split with people like Richard Grenell, who's advocated diplomacy, but Marco Rubio, I mean,
Rubio trumped Grenell.
Yeah, and it's an open secret that Grenell and Rubio have been totally at odds.
Yep.
But Rubio totally, it's same thing with Lindsey Graham. Rubio totally has Trump's ear, whereas Richard Grenell has been sidelined.
Yeah, Grenell, I mean, the fact is he's just not working as hard as Rubio. Rubio has this deputy named Michael Needham, who comes out of the Heritage Foundation and is very connected on Capitol Hill and Congress. He's one of the most powerful people in Washington that no one's heard of. And Grenell just doesn't have the same operation. Also, Rubio managed to take control over the entire national security bureaucracy through the demolition of USAID. And now he's as powerful as Kissinger. I don't think he can exert the same amount of power as influence as Kissinger, because he's not as intelligent, but he's definitely been a savvy operator. And Lindsey Graham will gain influence as long as Marco Rubio does. They have the same pimp, Paul Singer. Paul Singer, through his Elliott Capital Management, now owns Venezuela's largest asset, which was stolen from it. Its largest international asset, Citgo, which was stolen from it through the recognition of Juan Guaido as president. And now it's owned by Paul Singer, who's the biggest funder of Marco Rubio's career and is also one of the 2 key funders seeking to take out Thomas Massey in Kentucky because he's a Zionist fanatic.
Oh man, okay, we have limited time. We're going to go for as long as we can until the studio we're using kicks us out. But I want to make sure we talk about the Holocaust in Gaza. Some of the latest atrocities that I'm just seeing. Israel's bombed the food distribution site of the Samir Project, which we've supported. It's been supplying food to people in northern Gaza. So their food distribution site gets bombed today. Israel's also surrounded the Al-Quds hospital in North Gaza. So both these attacks taking place in North Gaza, it's clear that the plan to push people all the way to the south to set them up for permanent ethnic cleansing in Egypt continues apace.
Yeah. Is it Limor Livnat, who is an Israeli minister, We should have the clip, but you know, we don't have the production help here. Openly said what we're doing in Gaza is destroying people's homes and pushing them out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all out in the open. She declared on Israeli TV. This is something Netanyahu said privately back in May, that we will destroy their homes so they have nowhere to return to. And people in Gaza City are facing not just attacks from the air, but are facing these kind of robotic vehicle attacks. Over 200 robotic vehicles have been sent into Gaza City to blow up buildings and entire neighborhoods. It's the destruction of the largest city in Gaza. It's happening in broad daylight. Nothing's being done. The recognition of a Palestinian state is a hollow, empty gesture without any enforcement mechanism. And that will not stop this. I was outside the Colombian mission in Midtown New York yesterday. Protesters or supporters of Palestine had gathered there because we were told that Colombian President Gustavo Petro was going to announce at the UN a call for the UN Armed Protection Force to enable the delivery of aid to Gaza.
Which is what Craig McIver has been really pushing for. He's been advocating that. It's like the one thing the UN can do.
Craig McIver, who quit the UN in protest of its failure to stop the genocide early on, and is now pushing this plan, which would effectively end the Gaza genocide. But, you know, first, military forces, an international force has to be found.
Yeah.
And a Colombian diplomat appeared sort of spontaneously for a 10-minute press conference. It's on my Twitter account, my personal Twitter account. He's the director of Middle East issues for the president himself. And he basically said that they're exploring the options, refused to name the countries that they're even talking to, and couldn't give details on any possible deployment. I don't know how this is going to happen, but Colombia is also working on sanctions and blocking its own coal shipments to Israel. And it was a top exporter of coal to Israel. Meanwhile, you have Turkey continuing to supply Israel with gas.
Yeah.
I think they're the second largest supplier through Azerbaijan of gas to Israel. So the screws haven't been turned. And this is why we're witnessing just it's something like the Nakba that is uncomparable to any crime we've witnessed in the 21st century.
Yeah. And meanwhile, in the West Bank, Israel just cut off the Allenby Bridge, which is Palestinians in the West Bank's only gateway to the outside world. That's how they can get to Jordan.
Yeah.
And so now Palestinians in the West Bank are completely besieged as well.
The West Bank is like a giant open air prison now. It's under siege like Gaza. And then within the West Bank are several prisons. Every area A, basically every urban concentration of Palestinian population is cut off. They're cut off from one another by layers of settler terrorists and the military behind them. And it's very difficult to travel on those roads. The mayor of Nablus was just attacked by settlers today. And this is Israel's, they also see a narrow window of time there to annex the West Bank, and they're taking every opportunity they can to grab as much of it as possible and disable the possibility for, like, a material possibility for a Palestinian state. So I think it's actually more important to focus on the sanctions aspect, the boycott aspect, kicking Israel out of the European Football Association. And if it would be a miracle if the Europeans actually flexed muscle beyond sending one Italian ship to protect the Samud flotilla. Until then, the genocide just continues, and we will witness then the tension building in Rafah, where Israel will demand that Egypt open up Rafah and open up the Sinai. And let's say they resist. I mean, Sisi issued a defiant message at the summit, the Arab summit hosted by Qatar after Qatar was attacked. Let's say they do that. I think it's possible that Israel will try to take the Sinai again, as they did in 1967
Yeah.
and use it as a warehouse for the remnants of the Palestinian population of Gaza. I think that's a possibility. And Egypt is now operating with a kind of U.S.-Israeli gun to its head, with the U.S. in complete control of its economy, thanks to Camp David, with their currency facing a massive crisis, the population exploding. So I think Egypt is in 2 years, we're going to be talking about Egypt.
It makes sense to say, if you know the Israeli mentality, they're so entitled that that there's bitterness in Israel that among some sectors that they gave up the Sinai, which of course they stole in 1967. And there's still bitterness, of course, that they removed Jewish settlers from Gaza and how painful that was to extract these illegal Jewish fanatics from living on stolen Palestinian land in Gaza. So yeah, there's a drive to want to right that wrong.
Greater Israel in the original, I think, Jewish National Fund charter for Israel was not between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. It was between the Nile and the Euphrates. And the Israeli military actually removed settlers in 1973. Or not 73, 79, I guess it was after 77. But they removed settlers, and that was that was like the original Gush Katif crisis of Israel, and they still have designs on the Sinai. It would be a massive political crisis for Sisi if Palestinians were forced into the Sinai in large numbers. And Egypt is has the last standing strong Arab military, but would they use it? Can they use it? That's the question. But we're going there. I mean, Israel really is seeking to take over the region through a 7-front war, and then they're waging the 8th front in our own society by taking over every media asset, every avenue of influence. And then we also have, going back to your earlier question, the Zionist financiers and tech warlords who are basically keeping Israel's economy afloat by investing as much money as they can, pumping foreign capital and foreign direct investment into Israel for ideological reasons, just to make sure there are jobs for Israel's highly educated middle class. And like, this all became clear through the Jerusalem Post's 50 most influential Jews list. There are no Jews on that list who are not Zionists. It's 50 most influential Zionists. And the tech and finance section, they're all there in that top 50 because of how much money they're taking from the US and sending to Israel.
Yes, but it's not just these billionaires, it's also us taxpayers. Like, our money is being stolen to keep Israel afloat too. I mean, like, Israel's long been, its economy has long been subsidized, especially through military spending by US taxpayers.
Yeah, and another thing we're forced to do in the US, whether we like it or not, and in certain parts of the US, especially in Florida, is buy Israeli bonds. And the two figures in charge of Israel's national bonds were on that Jerusalem Post list. So the mayor of Palm Beach announced that he will invest something like 30% of all, place 30% or a very high number of investments in Israeli bonds. Whether or not the citizens of Palm Beach like it or not, the local municipal taxpayers, Israeli bonds have been downgraded twice since October 7th. They're not even rated in the US, as far as I know. Like, the rating is like, it's not good. And then you have the state of Florida, DeSantis is investing Florida state money in Israeli bonds. So we're basically keeping the Israeli economy afloat, and we're keeping their military afloat, and we're keeping this genocide going, whether we like it or not. And the polls, I mean, just look at the polls. It's like, there's literally no support within the Democratic Party for Israel.
Well, yes, and that's what I want to ask you.
At the base.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. Given that you have overwhelming now Democratic Party voters opposing Israel, not wanting anything to do with it, rebelling against their politicians who still, serve Israel, and you have this element on the right, like represented by Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and the late Charlie Kirk, according to your reporting. Should there not be political opportunity there to capitalize on, and how can that actually be capitalize on in an impactful way, given just like the broad spectrum of opinion that's turning against Israel.
Well, to be sure, Charlie Kirk was not part of that faction. He was sort of trying to bridge the divide.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And he might have been.
He was allowing space for them at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
okay,
might have been
yeah.
moving that way.
Right.
No, there's no action in Congress on the Republican side. Everything Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is now the leading critic of Israel in Congress,
Yeah.
everything she tries to do just gets shot down. She can't find any Republicans to co-sponsor resolutions.
Yeah.
And it really shows the extent to which they're controlled by AIPAC. Many of them just are so ideologically invested. But Lauren Boebert, who came in as one of the America First fanatics, gun-toting America, like MAGA fire breather, just introduced a new boycott bill to criminalize speech that Israel doesn't like. I mean, they've got her to, they pretty much have everyone except MTG and Thomas Massey, and they're trying to take Massey out. I don't think they'll succeed. And on the Democratic side, you are seeing some momentum for block the bombs, which the Progressive Caucus is supporting. But it's only to block offensive weapons. I don't think it even includes the Iron Dome.
No, of course not. No. They're very clear. People like Bernie and AOC have been clear to make sure that they voice their support for Iron Dome for whatever reason.
I don't think that they're going to be able to mobilize young people, urban young people in 2028. I just don't see how the Democrats are going to be able to do that. Like they don't really even exist right now. Like, I don't even know what their message is or their vision is. It's just that they have they're just running around pointing at Jeffrey Epstein and Trump. They don't have any vision, but they don't want to deal with this issue at all.
No.
And people are just not going to vote for them if they pull what they did under Kamala, who's now in her memoir attacking Biden for being too Zionist when she did exactly what they wanted.
She did nothing to distance herself from him. Absolutely nothing. I mean, like in the book, she says she pleaded with him to show the same compassion for Palestinians that he showed for Ukrainians. He wouldn't do it. But then why didn't you, Kamala? Like she didn't. She had every opportunity to distance herself from him, especially after he dropped out. Like he was in the past after he dropped out, but she wouldn't do it. And in the book, she still blames protesters who were against the genocide. She says that they were too strident and but again, she gave them nothing. She could have won over a lot more people if she offered them anything, like a Palestinian speaking at the DNC, but they couldn't even allow that.
No, it's people aren't stupid. There's not going to be a whole lot of bamboozling here when in the same breath, when you say, oh, we must do something for the poor suffering Palestinians who raped tons of women on October 7th. Like that was her messaging. Like the Palestinians are the suffering Palestinians who raped everybody.
Yeah.
She wouldn't stop talking about the rape hoax.
Yeah.
In her convention speech, she brought it up. So people aren't stupid, and no one was going to support her when her whole career was built up by AIPAC and Tech. Those are the two power factions that backed Kamala, got her in the Senate. And there's no Democrat that I can see vying to run in 2028 who isn't also controlled by these same factions. I mean, Gavin Newsom, pretty much the same. Who else do we got? So Marco Rubio, JD Vance. It's going to become increasingly clear that the American public, especially people under 35, have nothing in common with their leadership and no one to vote for. And they'll keep pushing, culture war issues on us. We're just going to hear more and more about trans shooters as this gulf widens.
Right. Well, we got a few minutes. We haven't been kicked out yet, so we can keep this going.
Like super chats or something. I got to go soon just because I got to train.
You got a train to catch. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if we have any super chats. And thanks everyone for bearing with our technical shortcomings today. We would have loved to have played some clips for you. Okay. Let's see here. Super chats.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats are going to run Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
He was kind of like Jake Tapper's body double.
Oh, for sure.
Who else are they going to run? Buttigieg.
Buttigieg, who recently was on Pod Save America, and he was asked about Gaza and gave the. If you haven't seen the clip, it's so funny. It's the one of the most incoherent word salads I've ever seen. It just says absolutely nothing over the course of 2 or 3 minutes.
Ro Khanna is going to be the one who's going to try to come in and
okay,
save the day and be the heir to Bernie Sanders' legacy. Ro Khanna has been funded by Andreessen Horowitz. And why doesn't he try to call some hearings on the takeover?
Huh.
Because the tech industry has him in their back pocket too.
Huh. Yeah.
He did criticize Buttigieg on that point.
Roe's been better than others in Congress, including trying to block.
Rahm Emanuel's going to run.
Well, and his brother, of course, is Ari Emanuel, and they're big supporters of Israel. Yeah. Yeah.
JB Pritzker.
Right. JD Vance was supposed to be like a, America First, Tucker kind of guy, but not so far. Not so far. I see nothing from him, but just constantly defending everything that Trump does. No anti-war messaging that I can detect from JD Vance.
Yeah.
I'm not expressing surprise. I'm just saying I'm contrasting with with the public image that he cultivated.
Yeah.
Our super chats are nothing but praise, and we appreciate it. But it's just not something I want to read. But thank you.
Let's wrap because I gotta.
All right.
I gotta get moving. But we will. It's been too long since we did one of these, and we'll be back very soon, remotely. But now that I know this studio's here, if we can just prepare a little bit more production-wise, we could do this more often.
We'll do that. If not here, then definitely somewhere else. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching the Grayzone live.
Yeah, thanks for making this possible, and thanks for supporting our reporting, the work we do. I mean, I think we're actually making huge impact, and it's thanks to all of you out there. So support however you see fit. Definitely subscribe, because you'll get everything from us when it comes out on Substack, and like this stream, because we are still suppressed by YouTube. So anyway, thanks for being here, and we will see you all soon. Peace.